Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. So we are going to be speaking from the 10th canto, 9th chapter, verses 13 and 14. The chapter is entitled Mother Yashoda Binds Lord Krishna. Na chantar na pahiryasya na purvam na pichaparam purva param bahischantar jagato yo jagachaya tammatva majam avyaktam martyalingam adhokshacham gopiko lukale damna babanda prakritam yata. I'll skip over to the translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has no beginning and no end, no exterior and no interior, no front and no rear. In other words, he is all-pervading. Because he is not under the influence of the element of time, for him there is no difference between past, present, and future. He exists in his own transcendental form at all times. Being absolute, beyond relativity, he is free from distinctions between cause and effect, although he is the cause and effect of everything. That unmanifested person, who is beyond the perception of the senses, had now appeared as a human child, and Mother Yashoda, considering him her own ordinary child, bound him to the wooden mortar with a rope. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. In Bhagavad Gita 10:12, Krishna is described as the Supreme Brahman, Param Brahma, Param Dhama. The word Brahma means the greatest. Krishna is greater than the greatest, being unlimited and all-pervading. How can it be possible for the all-pervading to be measured or bound? Then again, Krishna is the time factor. Therefore, he is all-pervading not only in space, but also in time. We have measurements of time, but although we are limited by past, present, and future, for Krishna, these do not exist. Every individual person can be measured, but Krishna has already shown that although he is Although he also is an individual, the entire cosmic manifestation is within his mouth. All these points considered, Krishna cannot be measured. How then did Yashoda want to measure him and bind him? We must conclude that this took place simply on the platform of pure transcendental love. This was the only cause. Advaitam achyutam anadi manantarupam adyam purana purusham navayauvanam cha vedeshu durlabam adurlabam atma bhakta govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami. Brahma Samhita 533. Everything is one because Krishna is the supreme cause of everything. Krishna cannot be measured or calculated by Vedic knowledge. Vedeshu durlabam. He is available only to devotees. Adurlabam atma bhakta. Devotees can handle him because they act on the basis of loving service. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yaschasmi tattvata. Thus, Mother Yashoda wanted to bind him. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Katamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Satvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhobhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Good morning, everyone, both online and here in the temple room. I hope I'm audible for the people on Zoom.
Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you. So the verse that we just read, it is quite a verse full of like contradictions. Like Krishna is spoken about as having like no beginning and no end, no exterior or no interior, no front or no rear, and that he is not influenced by time, and thus there is no difference of like past, present, and future for him. And these are like quite inconceivable if you think about it. Like for us, as human beings, like if we think like we can know, okay, where is one person sitting, what is like their height, or how much do they weigh, or how old are they, and if they are here, then they are not over there. If they are there, then they're not here. But whereas for Krishna, we see like all these things do not apply. He is transcendental both to space and time. We can't say that Krishna is only here and he's not there. He's there in all of our hearts. He's there in the hearts of every insect, every animal. He's there everywhere, basically. And at the same time, if he chooses to disappear, then he can also disappear. Like he chose to disappear during the Ras Leela. Or for us, like in our daily practice, like we are not able to connect with Krishna, then we can feel like, oh my God, like I'm trying, but I'm unable to connect with Krishna. So he can where to be and whom to be with at any time. To describe Krishna, we can't even say that he's either like quite heavy or quite very light. He's very tall or short. He's quite big. Because in all these regards, like we are still sort of like limiting Krishna. He is far beyond all of this. It's like Prabhupada gives the example of Mr. Frog, who's in the well, and he thinks like, oh, is the Atlantic Ocean like 5 times as big as my well, 10 times as big as my well? But no, it is not. It's inconceivable for that small frog. So the Vedas, they use this term Anor Aniyam Mahato Mahiyam. The Lord is smaller than the smallest, and he is larger than the largest. So if we can imagine like the smallest thing, then Krishna is even smaller than that. Then we see that in the particle accelerator, they are trying to like smash atoms and smash whatever different particles and find out like, okay, what is the smallest thing that is really there? What is the fundamental thing? And even if we were to find that, Krishna is still smaller than that. And if we can think of something very big, then Krishna is still bigger than that. And if we can imagine a great person, Krishna is like far greater even than that person. And the other aspect that Prabhupada touches upon here is like the concept of time, which is so ingrained in all of our psyche that we operate on the basis of time. There is like past, present, and future. Like we can notice this especially during japa, that we have to be in the present, but our mind is either going towards like, okay, what lies ahead in my day, what lies ahead in my life, or like there are some regrets or some complaints about what happened in the past, but we are unable to be in the present. Whereas for Krishna, that is not the case. He is always present. So if we can be present in our sadhana, then we can actually be there for Krishna to connect with him. And the other aspect of time is that Krishna can simultaneously be everywhere. He can choose to be anywhere at any time. This is basically like the tattva of Krishna, the understanding of Krishna, like as far as our minds can grasp. This is how Krishna is described. One more aspect is like in the verse it was described that there is no beginning and no end. Krishna has many energies, both material energies and spiritual energy. Everything emanates from Krishna. So we can't say that this form is limited or Krishna. We can't say that the material form is limited or the spiritual form is limited. Like Krishna can be unlimited in both the cases. Like even in the case of his personal form, in the Gita it is described like Brahmanohi Pratishtaham. So the Brahman, the Brahma Jyoti is emanating from his body. So even that infinite Brahman is inside him, and that he is the basis of the impersonal Brahma. And similarly, material energy, when it comes in contact with the spiritual energy, it becomes unlimited. Meaning, like, for example, like when Prabhupada used the dictaphone is just a material object. It's made of plastic, metal, and glass. But what was spoken into the dictaphone can and is continuing to change so many people's lives. So that same material object has become like, just by the touch of pure spiritual energy, it has become unlimited in that sense of the term. So everything that we use, if we use it in Krishna's service, then we give it the same potential, that it can become infinitely empowered. So I'll switch to like the actual pastime that is being described here. So this was some of the tattva of Krishna, as hard as it is for us to grasp, but it is still something for us to pray, to meditate, to hold on to. In this pastime, we see that Krishna is appearing as a baby child, and Yashoda is able to pick him up, but she's trying her best to tie him up because he's being a naughty child, like just like children are generally. And she's trying to get like all the rope that she has, then from the other gopis, then everything that she could find, but still she was unable to bind him. It is said that there were like so many piles of ropes around that Yashoda Mai was using, that there was no place to walk basically at a point. And we see that Krishna he chooses to display his like unlimited qualities. Yashoda Mai, she tried to bind him with matter, with ropes, but even that didn't work. Like even the spiritual rope that she was trying to use, even that didn't work. And the only thing that worked was love, basically. That her deep motherly love for the Lord, that is what like finally brings Krishna under her control. And it is said like there are three things which are described, like the Bhakta, the Bhagavan, and Bhakti. So the Bhakta is the devotee, the aspiring devotee. Bhagavan is obviously Lord Shri Krishna. And Bhakti is the process of us engaging in his eternal service. So out of these three, it is said that Bhakti is the strongest, because by the process of Bhakti, the Bhakta can control the Lord. And it's quite inconceivable. Like how can we control, like how can a living entity control the Supreme Lord? But the process of Bhakti is so powerful. Whereas when we see like the yogis and the jnanis, like they are also trying to reach Krishna, but they are not able to do that because there is no love in their hearts for the Lord. Hence, they are unable to capture him. Krishna, he displays that he doesn't want to be bound up, and we can think like, oh, Krishna is doing this because he's God, because he chooses to not be bound up. But the understanding is that he's just acting like a little child, and children don't like to be tied up when they want to play around, want to run around. So he was just displaying his childhood pastime. And as the intensity of love of Yashoda Mai was increasing, like as she was trying harder and harder to bind Krishna, at a point her anxiety was like completely transcendental. Like, so she was only trying to tie Krishna so that she could take care of other chores at home, other ways of serving Krishna. And when the expression of that love had reached like a very high degree, that's when that love, it basically overshadowed Krishna's own independence. So this is basically like the amazing, like the nature of Krishna, that the intense love can basically control Krishna. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, like from what I heard in one of the classes as I was preparing, he says in the Jaiva Dharma that Krishna's nature is fully independent, meaning that he is not in anyone's control and he can choose to be that way. If someone is independent, they can choose to stay completely free from anyone's control. But that same independence can manifest, like even when we say that this person wants to be independent, even that sort of like limits them, that they can only be independent. But when they choose Krishna, when he chooses, he can also come under someone's control. So that is actually an even higher degree of understanding of independence, that he is completely free to choose when to be independent and when to come under someone's control. The Mayavadis, they generally say like, oh, Krishna is dancing to the gopis when they say like, if you want some sweets, you need to do some, you need to entertain us basically. But and in the Upanishad, it is said like everyone is afraid of Krishna. The sun rises out of the fear of Krishna. The fire burns out of fear of Krishna. The wind blows out of fear of Krishna. But the same Krishna, he is showing that he is afraid of Yashoda Mai here. And basically, this just shows that Krishna's has an independent nature, and this is not something that we can debate or argue about. This is he has infinite independence, whereas we have minute independence as Jivatmas. And Krishna is like supremely independent. One time, like a person asked Prabhupada, like, can Krishna create something that is like quite heavy that even he can't lift? Prabhupada said, yes, he can create it. And then the man felt like smug and happy, like, oh, here I've sort of like tricked Prabhupada. But then Prabhupada just paused, and then he said, after some time, he'll pick it up. So it is basically a display of this inconceivable potency of Krishna. And one more pastime is like when Krishna, when Narada Muni visits Krishna in Dwarka, and Krishna has expanded himself into like 16,108 kings. And Narada Muni, he sees that Krishna is in one palace, he's like chatting with his wife. In one palace, he's spending time with his children. In another palace, he is taking care of the rulership and so many other things. And Narada, he goes to one of the palaces, and as soon as he comes, as per etiquette, as per like what as per how a sannyasi is supposed to be respected, Krishna comes and he worships him. He washes his feet, and Narada is feeling embarrassed that this is his Lord who is worshipping him, who's serving him. And then after some time, then Narada goes to another palace, and again Krishna sees him, and again he comes and he worships him. Narada is bewildered, like, I just saw him some time back, and now he's again worshipping me like he is seeing me for the first time. And it's basically like Narada was able to see this because he had devotion in his heart, that how there are so many Krishnas simultaneously, and they are all independent, but they are all like relating to him in a very personal and a unique way. And basically what we see is like, if and when someone develops like unalloyed devotion to Krishna, then all these apparent contradictions can be reconciled. And this is not reconciled for the devotee by their intelligence understanding, like, okay, oh, so this is how I understand Krishna is, so I've figured out how Krishna is or who he is. No, it is not like that. It is like Krishna himself revealing within the heart of the devotee how who he is, or how his pastimes are, and how that specific pastime is taking place. In the Bhagavad Gita, it said, Ye yata mam prapadyante, like, as all surrender unto me, Krishna, I reward them accordingly. And in the Bhagavatam, it is said like, Savai pumsa paro dharma, yato bhakti radokshaje, ahaytuki apratihata yayatma suprasidati. So the devotional service, it must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self, and to satisfy and to have that relationship with Krishna. So basically in all of this, we see like the glory of devotional service. And in the 5th canto, Krishna says that he is more willing to give mukti, he's more willing to give liberation, but not bhakti, because once he gives bhakti to someone, then Krishna is under that person's control. And Krishna is also worried, so to say, that he doesn't want to come under the control of anyone and everyone. He only wants to come under the control of someone who is completely pure in their hearts, who has no ulterior motives other than serving him. So on the one hand, the Lord is very merciful, but also he is also a bit hesitant. And so that's why he is also strict sometimes. And that's why we as practitioners of bhakti, we have to follow the regulative principles. We have to wake up in the morning, chant our rounds, do our sadhana bhakti. And when Krishna feels the time is right, when our guru feels the time is right, then we will be given that mercy. Basically, we need the mercy of obviously both Guru and Krishna to come to that place. I mean, in this pastime, we see that Yashoda did not have any motivation other than to protect and to serve Krishna. And she is not taking a break. She's thinking of Krishna's welfare 24 hours a day. And her love for Krishna is very, very strong. Like in the previous chapter, Krishna is displaying the entire universe inside his mouth. And so probably this was just like few days after when she saw the entire universe within Krishna's mouth, the entire creation. But her love is so strong that she does not even consider that. She has already forgotten that under the influence of Yoga Maya, that she saw the entire cosmic manifestation inside her baby's mouth. But her love is so overpowering that all she can think of is like, okay, how do I serve this child? How do I feed him? How do I protect him? And she is only thinking of Krishna's happiness. And that is where she finds her happiness. Like the example of like us watering the root and the entire tree being nourished is given. So this process of bhakti is like quite powerful. I'll just quickly give a brief story that I heard from Sachinand Swami. Like there is this person who lives by the Ganges, and he has to carry logs of wood up the river to his shop, his carpentry shop, I guess. And he's praying to the Lord, like, oh Lord, please help me, please help me. And one day the Lord appears to him and he asks him, like, okay, what do you want from me? He says like, oh, it's so hard for me to carry. Can you just give me like lots of cotton so I can just cushion my shoulders and my feet so I won't get hurt while I'm carrying these logs of wood? And aren't we also like that? Like when we come to Krishna, who can provide everything, we can be so silly as to ask for name, fame, profit, adoration, and recognition. I mean, we have these qualities in our heart. And if we could really surrender to Krishna, we can ask like, oh, Krishna, please give me pure loving devotion. So our hearts are also like fully alive. Like we see the pure devotee's heart, like Prabhupada's heart and other wonderful devotees' hearts. And this pastime is basically, obviously, like everyone knows, this is from the Damodar Leela. And in the last verse, it is said like, in the last verse, like Satyavrata Muni is glorifying Krishna, the pastime and everything. But at the end, the last verse, he says like, oh, I worship the rope, which is binding Krishna. Namaste Sudamne, Spuradipti Damne, Twadiyo Darayata Vishwasya Damne. Says, I worship the rope that is binding Krishna. And then I worship Radharani, who is the embodiment of the Ladini Shakti, the pleasure potency of Krishna. And then he pays obeisances to the infinite pastimes of the Lord. So this rope, basically, which Yashoda Mai used to bind Krishna, ultimately, it is she basically uses the strength of the rope. It is said like the rope is no one else but Yashoda binding Krishna through the love of Radharani. Ultimately, it's only like a Radharani who can ultimately bring us closer to Krishna. Like as Radhashtami is coming up in like another 4 days or so, we can also pray to her that, oh Radharani, oh Jagan Mata, oh Divine Mother, I am so covered by Durga, by the external potency. Please give me shelter. That please help me take shelter of Krishna's internal potency and come closer to him. Ultimately, like we see that no one can tie Krishna but Krishna Prem. And just to wrap up, it is in the Preeti Sandarbha, like Jiva Goswami, he says that Bhakti brings one to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhakti reveals the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhakti brings the Supreme Personality of Godhead under control, and Bhakti is stronger than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, yeah, if we really understand the process that Prabhupada has given us and the Acharyas have given us, it is like quite inconceivable, like a gift that has come our way. And we as practitioners, this I'll just say a final quote from this. I read from Sachinandan Maharaj's book, The Living Name. He quotes from the Prema Vaivarta Puran that if you wish to advance on the path of pure bhakti, not many rules are necessary. Simply beg for the complete shelter of the holy name of Krishna, and thus purify your heart and consciousness. So we've all been given great gifts. It's up to us to make good use and not be like that carpenter who was just asked for some cotton from the Lord. We can actually ask for like complete pure devotion and surrender from him to him and to his pure devotees. So thank you. Hare Krishna. Yes, Hare Krishna. Just turn the laptop around. Like Adipurush Prabhu here has a question or comment.
Hare Krishna, you can hear me okay? Yeah, Krishna is so wonderful. he reveals himself. We can't control him except by the fact that he sees our love and wants to reveal himself. There was a little Indian pujari taking care of Radha Muralidhar, and someone came from another temple and they wanted to make an outfit. You know this? So he gave the pujari the measuring tape. Can you measure Radharani, right? And he went in there and he came out and looked like he was going to cry. And he went back in and he came out and looked like, I can't measure Radharani. He couldn't measure. It was just because of how the factor of the devotee's consciousness factors into how Krishna decides to reveal himself. We finally just said, well, just give us one of the other outfits, you know. But the sentiment of the devotee was so genuine and so innocent. And he just couldn't bring himself to take the tape measure and measure Radharani so that the devotee could make an outfit. And there's one story, what is the name? Thomas Aquinas, great Christian theologian, and he was walking on the beach and there was this little child there, and the child was playing with a conch shell and some water. And he said to the little child, what are you doing? The child said, I'm going to put the ocean into this conch shell. He had two shells. He said, don't be silly. You can't put the ocean in there. And then the little child said, similarly, you cannot contain God by your minuscule, tiny mind. You know, so we can't exactly control him. But Krishna, if he's moved by the devotee's sentiment, he can reveal himself or allow himself to be tied up by love, not by rope, but by love. I wish you could have seen that little pujari guy crying. So fun. But Krishna gave us that pastime. We'll go to Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
I've heard that when we describe the deity, we shouldn't keep our hands like this because Krishna cannot be contained. So it's something like this. Basically, he's ever expanding. So, Krishna.
I'll carry it.
No, it's okay. I can just turn it around.
Save the way.
When you pray for bhakti, you were advising us to pray for not mundane things, but to pray for bhakti. But there are so many types of bhakti. There's Dasya Bhakti and Sakya Bhakti and Madhurya Bhakti and Vatsalya Bhakti is what we're hearing about in this chapter. and the bhakti of the Vaikuntha-vasis. So when we pray for bhakti, bhakti just seems like a very generic sort of rubric term in this context. What are we actually praying for if we're praying for the gift of bhakti? Or maybe in your own personal life you can share. I mean, those are private details perhaps, but just in your conception of it, when you're praying for bhakti, are you praying for a type of bhakti, or is it just a generic sort of energetic thing in the head? How does that work out for you? For you, maybe personally, but conceptually, not in your personal bhajan, but just in your conception of it.
Personal question, asking you.
I mean, I can tell like the way I understand it, and I can also tell like what is how I see it personally. Meaning like the way I've told to, I'm sure you, Jai Jagannath Prabhu, you can probably have a more better answer. The relationship will be revealed at a point in time. Like we cannot previously, like before Prabhupada, like in the Gaudiya Math, like how the Siddha Pranali was given, like, okay, what is your eternal identity? Prabhupada did not have that in ISKCON. So at this point, when we pray for bhakti, it is like the Bhagavatam described, like unmotivated and uninterrupted. Like unmotivated meaning, let that not be like some selfish intentions behind. Like in the basement of the Bhakti Center, there is a poster of Radhanath Swami. He says like the degree to which our service is selfless, to that degree we will feel happiness in Krishna consciousness. I wish I remember the exact quote. It is there in the room where the plates and cups are kept. So like Maharaj, he's saying that let us become selfless, like let there not be selfish, egotistical, either gross or subtle motivations behind our actions. And to your question, like at this point, that somewhat describes what I pray for also when it comes to bhakti. Like when I am sitting down and doing my japa, that let me try to hear the holy name. Let me try to remember Krishna basically here. And let me keep my phone aside. Let me keep my life aside for this 2 hours and just be with Krishna. And I'm hopeful, like whenever the time is right, whatever has to be revealed will be revealed. But at this point, this in itself is a very, very high goal. Like it's a daily struggle, like when we sit down to bring the mind to the holy name. So this in itself is like enough of a challenge for this lifetime and probably many lifetimes. And I guess like even in the Bhagavatam it is said, right, like ultimately whatever motivations we have, whether it be for liberation, for selfish desires, let us come to Krishna at the end of the day. So that's how I understand it. I hope it is somewhat satisfying.
Evan, we'll follow up.
Yes.
So a lot of times in classes and just in general communal settings and devotees and sanghas, people will speak, like you just used the words, at this point that we're at, as if we're all like generally in the same, we're at the same level of advancement. And then there's like devotees who've been practicing for 20, 40 years, and there's devotees who've been practicing for 2 weeks in the same room. So when you say at this point, what does that really mean? You know?
I mean, at this point, it is a very subjective thing for each person. It is not an objective statement. Yeah, this is, I mean, a devotee won't say like, oh, I can see Krishna, right? Like that is quite a haughty statement to make. So everyone, even our teachers, our gurus are also humble that they don't say what their deepest realizations are. Maybe in private conversations, they might be talking about those things, but this at this point is quite individual for us, and we can't compare ourselves to someone else. I guess the safe way of approaching it is like being humble. Like, okay, sometimes like the mind can conceive of things, right? The mind can think, oh, I'm progressing and I'm making advancement, but the next day we see like, oh, our senses are again attracted to matter, to either the opposite gender or envy or greed or pride, or we see all these things. So even though we make such a statement, but only we know within our hearts like where we stand, and that needs some introspection, some like honest reflection for all of us. If Bhima Prabhu has a question, like I know we only have 3 minutes, so Hare Krishna, Bhima Prabhu.
Haribol Bala Krishna. What a wonderful class. Everything in the end you centered on the time that we have to spend with Krishna in the morning, the priority, that day by day being there with Krishna. On that particular question on how do we approach Krishna, how we should feel, what our rasa is, etc. And ultimately, that's what I have read and come to understand, that, you know, in order to develop some attachment to Krishna and the holy name, hold on, now I'm getting bombarded. All right, good boys. In order to, how you doing? In order to become attached, one has to, Radhanath Maharaj said, when I asked him that question, I was a brand new bhakta and I was confused by all the rasas and how I should approach. Radhanath just said 3 words, which I always remember, is come as you are. And I always remembered that you should not try to affect or pretend something, that you should simply approach Krishna who you know yourself to truly be, to be true to yourself, and thereby you cannot be false to anyone, and you cannot be false to Krishna. And then if Krishna sees that you're sincere in approaching him from where you're at, then he will take you by the wrist and bring you to where he wants you. And that's what Maharaj had told me, and I just thought I'd mention that. Also, I'd also like to say that pastime that Adi Purush said is so endearing. I don't think I'll ever forget it. I cannot measure Radharani. That's just extremely moving. I couldn't imagine getting on the altar and doing such a thing. So it was really heart touching. So Hare Krishna, wonderful class, wonderful. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Yes, like we have to be quite authentic in our bhakti. Be honest with ourselves, and I mean Krishna is within everyone's heart. Like, who are we cheating and thinking of, like, us being something more than who we are? So, and of course, then we have the devotees, our guru, and Krishna himself to correct us, to help us, to guide us. So we in that sense, we are, even though we make mistakes, which I have done many and I continue to, Krishna is helping us, both from the bitter mercy and the sweet mercy. So thank you, Bhima Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Adi Purush Prabhu has one more comment.
Yeah, just like what Chaitanya says, one who says he's my devotee is not my devotee, but one who's the devotee of my devotee, he's my devotee. And I've heard one of my older godbrothers say, I don't know Krishna, but I know Prabhupada. And if I can please my spiritual master or the servant of my spiritual master, so when you're right there with another devotee, whoever that is, and you're trying to encourage that person in devotional service, care for that person, show that person Krishna's affection, then we have access to the Lord through the devotees that we're trying to help in devotional service. And that goes to Krishna. but it's not someone far away and that I'm so advanced that I can reach him directly. Hare Krishna.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Just please note, it's all 8:01, so the pujari might open. If it's a quick comment, please go ahead.
Wow. And this is why the Bhakti Center about time should end the class at 7:45. So everyone has an this is just constructive criticism. Everything summed up to me is one word: love. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
It's love for Krishna, love for his pure devotees. Thank you. So I think we'll end the class here. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyascha Pavanebhyo pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna.
Hey